Hello all, welcome to Kalam ICAS Academy. This is Priyanka Mahapatra, faculty at Kalam ICAS. So today we'll be continuing with the detailed analysis of the UPSC essay paper 2022, and we are taking up the first topic of the paper, that is forests are the best case studies for economic excellence. So what do you understand from this topic? How do you interpret this essay topic? In fact, this is one of the wrongly interpreted essays by the students in the past few years. For that reason, students got stuck in just 70s, 80s and 90s in that year. And that is only because of the wrong interpretation of the meaning of the essay. So what is this topic saying? It is saying that forest, they are the best case studies for economic excellence. But what did the people do? They thought that whatever phenomena is going in the forest, whatever services it is providing to the ecosystem, to the public, that is helping in enhancing or improving the economy of the nation. Okay, in terms of climate change, in terms of oxygen supply, in terms of timber, okay, in terms of the goods and services. Okay, so that is what the students interpreted, that whatever services is provided by the forest, that is helping in the economic excellence of a nation. But that is just one aspect of the essay. Here the essay has to be interpreted in the way that whatever ecosystem services are going on inside the forest is just like an ecosystem. It is not dependent on any other external factor in order to sustain. It is self-sustaining, and it is self-sustaining because of the ecosystem services that are going on inside, like the food web, food cycle, okay, any recycling process. There is no external help required in order to survive, okay, in order to sustain the forest. It is self-sustaining. So what is going on inside the forest which can be replicated for the economy in order to excel? That is what is the main meaning of the topic, that how the forest can be a best case study for economic excellence. Okay, so the financial system of the world can learn a lot from the ecological system of the forest. And forest is a natural ecosystem with some core functions going on, like energy flow, food web, whereas the economy is a man-made function with a flow of money, supply chain, distribution happening inside. So how can the forest be an example, or forest can be a case study, forest can be a role model for the economic excellence? That is the main crux of this topic. Understood? So coming to the brainstorming session. So as you all know, you have to spend your first 20 minutes of your time towards the brainstorming session, and that is done on the rough page of the UPSC answer sheet. That is towards the last. So what do you do in the brainstorming session? You just have to write down whatever thoughts are coming in your mind about this topic, whether it is relevant, irrelevant, structured, unstructured, any idea which is coming in respect to this topic, you have to write down there. Then what you will do, you will just filter out that what is relevant for this particular essay, which all dimensions will be written first, which all dimensions will be written later, like the way ahead and the counter argument part of the essay will come later in the last part of the body. Okay, you have to generate those important 4-5 dimensions of this essay. Then only the essay will become comprehensive, right? Then you will also make sure that each and every analysis argument that you're making, that is also accompanied with an example, so that you're not talking in the air. You have something, some case study, some best practice, some example with you in order to substantiate, in order to justify your argument. Okay, and in the essay writing, it is very important to balance out the argument part and the example part. Okay, so if you write only examples, then you're not going to get great marks because analysis is missing out. Just this is just like your GS paper, where you do a analysis first and then you give an example to substantiate this analysis, this argument. So same lies with the essay paper as well. Okay, so in the brainstorming session, you have to define everything. Which all dimension will come first, which all dimension will come last, which all examples will go with what argument, and you'll make sure that examples are not repeating, they're not controversial, they're widely accepted, and the examples are diverse. They're from all spheres, like societal example, economic example, ethical example, international example, any contemporary example of any entrepreneur, of any writer, historical example. Okay, so you will make your examples coming from diverse spheres, right? Then your dimensions must be multidimensional. That means you should be having at least 3-4 important dimensions for this particular essay, along with the way ahead part, along with the counter argument part. Then only your essay will become multidimensional. It's not that if you write different examples from different spheres using the pestle approach, then your essay will become multidimensional. No, it's a myth. Then it is that when you write examples from diverse spheres, then the essay will be called diverse essay, not multidimensional essay. But when you are coming up with 3-4 important dimensions that we are going to discuss in the form of questions, okay, you'll ask yourself questions regarding this topic. That what are the case studies? How these case studies will solve the economic issues? What hinders the economic excellence? What are the other case studies which are required for economic excellence? It is not only the forest, which are the case studies, which are the best case studies for the economic excellence. So this is how you can create the counter argument part of the essay. What else is required for the economic excellence? So these are called the dimensions of the essay. Under that, you have to make your analysis, your argument, and give example. Hope I'm clear with you. Okay, and coming back to the brainstorming session, yes. So you should be defining everything, including the introduction part, which anecdote you would be writing, which quotation you would be giving. The anecdote and the quotation which you are making in the introduction part, which is actually very impactful for the examiner. Okay, that is the first impression of the examiner which he will carry throughout the paper. So that must be very impactful, very hitting. Okay, so you should make sure that your anecdote is very much justifying the wholesome meaning of the topic. Then you'll think that how you will conclude this essay, by giving reference to the introduction, of course, whether you will go with the quotation based end to this essay. Okay, what futuristic perspective you can give for this essay. So everything you define in this brainstorming session, so that your basic framework skeleton is already ready, and in the next 1 hour 5 minutes you would be just expanding the content which is already ready with you in the brainstorming session, right? So this is the importance of brainstorming, and this is how you will also stick to the UPSC directive. The UPSC directive says that you have to write closely related to the topic. Your expression should be effective and exact. And implicitly, it also means that the content should not be repeated, including the examples. You should avoid repetition of ideas. So these all will be checked when you have a proper brainstorming session. Right? So for this particular essay, you will be creating those 3-4 important dimensions. Okay, you will say about the case studies that are offered by the forest for the economic excellence and how these case studies can solve the economic issues. Then what hinders the economic excellence? That is another dimension you should be discussing in this particular essay. Then coming to the way forward, what are other case studies which are required for economic excellence? So first we will discuss about the case studies that are offered by the forest for economic excellence. So first is regarding the power of collective effort. Okay, so we all know that forest consists of many components, and it is resilient for the same reason that all the components, they act in a group. Okay, they act in a bound manner. They must band together in order to face any threat, and they ultimately prevail, starting from tiniest blades of the grass to the tallest trees. Okay, so being together in the forest because of the collective effort, because of the interdependence between the species, between the various species, the forest becomes resilient, resilient enough to survive any kind of threat. Okay, so for that matter, similarly, an economy which is working towards excellence should have the participation from all the members of the society. That is called as inclusive growth, and that will lead to the economic excellence. Okay, so this is how you will take along the forest and the economy. Okay, both the aspects should be discussed together. On one aspect, you are writing about the forest, and in another aspect, you are writing about economy. If you are writing about the collective effort, what happens in the forest in terms of collective effort, and in economy, how the collective effort will help. Right? Then comes the diversity that is seen in the forest. So because of this diversity and interdependence at the same time, the food chain in the forest would be significantly changed if we eliminate some of the smallest species even. For that matter, many forest species might go extinct if we eliminate the smallest of the species there. They're so much interdependent on each other. Okay, in similar sense, this interdependence is always there in the economy as well. Okay, so this diversity, interdependence makes sure that economy is not just built on one support, instead it is supported by number of fundamental pillars like agriculture, service sector, manufacturing sector, industrial sector. So they're all dependent on each other. Right. Then we come to the free and fair competition which is there in the forest and economy as well. In the forest, there is free and fair competition happening when there is a level playing field available to each and every species there in terms of same soil, in terms of sunshine, in terms of water availability, in terms of minerals availability. So there is a level playing field between the species, and the competition is happening there within that level playing field given to all the species. Similarly, in economy also we have tried giving the level playing field to everybody in order to foster innovation and creativity. But when this free and fair competition is disturbed, it gets disturbed by any external factor. Like in the forest, if any invasive species come, any alien species come, then it disturbs the ecosystem there. Similarly, in economy also, external factors they come and disturb. For example, dumping of products by China, it disturbs the market, disturbs the demand and supply. Okay, so in case of that, any nation protects such dumping of products or such invasive species coming inside through their own legislations like anti-dumping laws by Indian government. Then humans have overutilized the forest for their short-term gains, for their short-term happiness. They have overexploited in terms of food, fuel, building roads, dams, and other necessities of life. And this has caused a lot of devastation of the forest environment, which has caused a lot of ecological imbalance, pollution, soil erosion. Similarly, if we look for short-term advantages in the economy, that might translate to long-term devastation, right? So short-term advantages, not thinking about the sustainable economy, not thinking about the sustainability of the economy for the longer run, it can bring a long-term devastation. For example, quantitative easing. It is not at all sustainable for economy. So what is quantitative easing? It is a monetary policy tool. It is used by the central banks in order to stimulate the economic growth. How does it stimulate the economic growth? By increasing the money supply, by printing money. Okay, but this can lead to asset bubbles. That means so much of money in the market, it can drive up the prices of the assets. Like stocks market prices will go up, real estate prices will go up, and the asset prices therefore becomes very inflated, and that can eventually lead to crash. That can eventually lead to financial crisis. So these short-term advantages, they are not at all sustainable for the economy. Just as short-term advantages seen through exploitation of the forest resources, through the construction of dam, through the construction of roads, disturbing the pathways of the animals, leading to human-animal conflict. So this is how you can take along both the forest and the economic aspect in this essay. Then only the whole meaning of the essay will be justified. Then comes the mutual symbiosis, self-sustaining services or phenomena that is going on inside the forest. For example, wildfire. Wildfire, when it is in a smaller amount, it is a good thing in the forest. It will aid in increasing the seed germination and dissemination. Okay, flooding. To a certain extent, it will aid in replanting the fertile soil on top of the infertile topsoil. Rains, they replenish the water table. Okay, so this is how there is a self-sustaining loop in the forest. There is no requirement of any external agent to help the sustenance of the forest. Okay, so here we are talking about recycling, replenishment. So similar system in our economy where we have no resource wasted, every end product waste is used to create a new one through the circular economy, through the 5R of garbage management like refuse, reduce, reuse, rot and recycle. So if these are put into practice, then that can lead to sustainability of the economy. Just as seen in the forest, how it is a sustaining loop inside because of the food web, because of the recycling of nutrients, of the water table, of the fertile soil. ठीक है? Are you getting me? So this is how you should be writing for this particular essay. Then what hinders the economic excellence? It is the unemployment, because joblessness, it will trap the people in poverty. There is a Brazilian case study where it was discovered that parents' unemployment, it can significantly increase the stress levels in the children. And if both the parents are unemployed, then the children are more likely to leave school. They are more likely to stay out of school to find employment. And these children won't have as much as human capital or skills or capabilities developed within them, and of course due to the postponement or non-finishing, or they are not finishing up their requisite education, and that will put them into precarious employment situations in the future. Okay, they will not be able to find appropriate employment for them, and mostly they will end up being unemployed. being dependent on government support always. Okay, so there will be a generational poverty in this way, right? So this hinders the economic excellence. Again, infrastructure deficits also will hinder the economic excellence. Without good roads, bridges, ports, it is difficult to move the goods and the people around. It raises the cost of business, logistical cost. Then human capital issues, that will also hinder the economic excellence, just now we discussed. When there is lack of skills training, when there is poor education system, when there is uneducated workforce, inadequately educated workforce, that will limit a country's ability to compete in the global economy. Inadequate healthcare will also impact the economy, because the sick population will be less productive and they will be putting a strain in the economy. Then any kind of macroeconomic instability also brings hindrance to the economic excellence, like high inflation always. It will erode the value of savings. It will discourage investment, because people will have less disposable income in their hand when there is high inflation. High budget deficits also will have a hindrance impact on the economic excellence, where large government deficits can lead to higher interest rate and it will not encourage the private investment to happen. Then what else hinders this economic excellence? It is a geopolitical instability also that hinders the economic excellence. When there is political instability, that will not encourage investments to come. Therefore, it will make it difficult to do business in the country. Again, the climate change is also another hindrance to economic excellence. Extreme weather events, rising sea levels, it can damage the infrastructure, disrupt the economic activity. Then the counter argument part of the essay, that what are other case studies for economic excellence? High living standards, stability, sustained economic growth. So these are other case studies which will be helpful for economic excellence. Then you will conclude this essay that realizing all living things have equal claim to the soil is one of the most valuable lessons that can be learned from the forest. The philosophy that should guide one's life is living and letting live. A species level of intellectual development is a critical factor in determining whether or not life will continue to exist in our planet. It is about time that we acknowledge the obligation that we have as fellow living creatures to nurture and protect one another. Okay, so this is how you can conclude the essay. Again, in the conclusion also, it's very important that you connect back to the introduction, in which way you would have introduced this essay by writing any quotation or anecdote. So you should be giving a very brief reference in the conclusion. The conclusion should be futuristic. It can have the government slogans like Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, Vishwa Bharat. Then you can use a quotation to end, or else it is fine. If you are comfortable with the quotation, because quotation is a very risky affair, you should be very sure that the quotation is actually fitting in the argument or the place where you are trying to fit in the quotation. Okay? Otherwise, it is not mandatory to use quotations in the essay, it is fine. But your argument, your example should be very much justifying to the meaning of the essay. That is most important to keep it in your mind. Okay, so this was all about this topic's discussion. Again, this was one of the most wrongly interpreted essays. People by now would have known the real interpretation of this essay, that it was not all about that how the forest is providing timber, nuts, okay, any goods or ecosystem services which is helping the economy of a nation to grow. It's not about that. It is about that what phenomena is going inside the forest, which can be actually replicated in the economy to excel. Most importantly, you can talk about the circular economy, about the recycling. It is about sustainability of the environment, not wasting resources, right? So, okay, thank you so much.